Shalom. Our topic is visitors to Israel this Shavuot. What should they do about Parshat Naso? Now, uh, theoretically, you might think that this is already a moot point. However, we'll find from the tshuva that we're going to look at, Rav Yosef Lieberman, who is a great posek, a very interesting person. He actually was an architect by profession, and really one of the great poskim. He has a set of Svarim Mishnat Yosef, many volumes, every topic under the sun. So he's going to end up saying, if I can be a spoiler, that the best solution for people in Chutz Laretz who has come, people from Chutz Laretz who have come to Eretz Yisrael, and they are keeping a second day Yom Tov. And so they're not reading the Parshat Shavuot, Parshas No. So they're reading Yom Tov Kriya, which is in a second day minyan. So those people, his solution is going to be that this coming Shabbos, before the first Aliyah, those people should figure out a way to read all of Parshas Naso before the first Aliyah. That's what he eventually is going to say, before the first Aliyah Bal Loscha. Now let's just speak about the issue. I want to introduce the topic not from that tshuva, but from a very interesting sefer called Davar Be'ito, which is kind of a Torah almanac by Rabbi Ginat. His first name is, I think, Mordechai, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I have it on the last page. Yeah, Mordechai Ginat. So it's Mem, and I'm almost sure it's Mordechai. So now, just a little bit about this sefer. This the sefer Davar Be'ito is a giant Torah almanac. What does it have in it? It's a very thick sefer, and it has all possible halachic times, relevant halachic times, every minhag under the sun that you can imagine, all the daily learnings, astronomical information, whoever has a yurtzeit on a given day, and many, many interesting halachic and historical facts. And the volume that I have two of them, but I'm looking at from Tufshin Ayin Tet. It has 1,808 pages. On page 1,141, so he headlines it, "Denachtin latata u'desalkin la'ela," those who are going below and who are coming up, which is referring to people visiting from Chutz Laretz to Eretz Yisrael and vice versa. So he opens up with something that takes the whole question and reframes it. The question somebody might ask is, listen, I'm a ben Chutz Laretz. I'm here in Israel for a year. I'm here in Israel for 2 years, but I'm going back to Chutz Laretz. So I'm keeping 2 days of Yom Tov when I'm here. That's what my rabbis told me, and that's what I'm doing. Okay. Again, there are people who are b'nei Chutz Laretz. They're visiting Eretz Yisrael, and they keep 1 day of Yom Tov when they're here, and that they're not going to have that question. But the b'nei Chutz Laretz that do have this question, so they might ask a follow-up question. They say, wait a second. If you look at the graphic on the screen, so for the b'nei Eretz Yisrael, Shavuot is 1 day, and Isra Chag is Shabbos, and that's Parshas Naso. But for the B'nai Chutz Laretz, and assuming they're keeping a second day of Yom Tov even here in Eretz Yisrael, and not only that, they're even having a minyan of their own, and davening all the Yom Tov tefillas, and then they're going to do the Yom Tov Kriyas Torah, and they're not going to be doing Parshas Naso. And next week here in Eretz Yisrael, we'll be doing Baloscha. So these people might ask, wait a second, how am I going to do, what's going to be with Parshas Naso for me? So the assumption of that question is that they're somehow obligated in Parshas Naso. But that's not so simple because who says they're obligated? Now, I'll just phrase it as a question. That question is assuming that Kriyas HaTorah is not only something that the tzibur, that the congregation is obligated to do, but Kriyas HaTorah is something that every individual is obligated to hear, so to speak. So he opens up with Hashlamata Parsha Einom Bidin Chiyuv Gamor. Making up the Parsha is not a complete obligation. Ve'af pachot minkach. It's even less than that. V'ulai lechatchila gam yesh lehimana milavarech alea. And maybe even if we want to do things in the best possible way, one should not make a bracha on making up the Parsha. Milvad bayot lo titgodedu. Besides the problem of there's a prohibition of lo titgodedu. Now the word lo titgodedu means don't do something that has to do with Gimel and Dalet. Now, what do they mean? There's a number of different explanations of lo titgodedu. One of the explanations of lo titgodedu is lo tasu agudot agudot. That's what I meant by different verbs, different three-letter roots that have to do with Gimel and Dalet. So, don't make different congregations. What do you mean? We have a lot of congregations. There's a lot of people praying in a lot of different synagogues. No, you shouldn't have divergent practices within the same unit. So you shouldn't, for instance, have in one shul, some people, let's say there was a minhag to make kiddush in shul on Friday night in the shul. Some people doing it, and some people purposely skipping it. Rather, the shul should have one minhag of what the shul is doing. So, and I know lo titgodedu is a massive, massive topic, but he's just pointing out having a separate Kriyas HaTorah doing Parshas Naso while everybody is doing Parshas Baloscha or something else is not simple. That it's not a problem of lo titgodedu. And a third problem that might be in it is, or a third issue with it is tircha de tzibura. Let's say you have a synagogue, and there's a significant amount of bnei chutz la'aretz that miss Parshas Naso, and they're in a shul with bnei Eretz Yisrael. So the bnei Eretz Yisrael are going to wait. I timed it this week. I was just curious, how long does it take me just to read the Parsha from beginning to end? Parshas Naso took about a half hour. And I just read the words like you would read the words. So with the trup, so that's a half an hour where all those people, all those bnei Eretz Yisrael would be sitting in the shul, and it would be. Now you're going to say, listen, they're listening to Torah. Right, but that's not part of the standard plan. The standard plan of a person on a Shabbos morning is they go to shul for X amount of hours and they come back. And we see that the halacha does take into account tircha de tzibura. So there's three issues that point to not making it up. One, who says there's an obligation on an individual of the public Kriyas HaTorah? Number two, maybe it's not so simple to have different places reading different parshas. Shouldn't everybody in Eretz Yisrael be reading Parshas Baloscha just, and not some shuls reading Naso plus Baloscha? Third, tircha de tzibura. All those people that are having this week a Kriyas HaTorah that's a half an hour longer than every other week. So this whole question is not so simple. That's number one. Um, and now, what are the ways of dealing with this issue? So there we go to Rav Yosef Lieberman in his Mishnat Yosef. So it is a tshuva in the 18th of Sivan Tav Shin Nuntet. It was 10 years before what I was reading. 20 years before what I was reading, and he writes to a yeshiva bacher who wrote him, Shalom v'kol tuv selo la'bachur amuflag b'torah v'yirat shamayim kohen shedato yafa kemar Avram HaKohen Aaron Troy Nero Yair b'yeshivat Rabbeinu Chaim Oizer B'nai Brak. So he's learning in the yeshiva in B'nai Brak, and here's the question: Achrei drishat Shlomo Atov, after inquiring of your welfare, Higiani michtavcha, your letter reached me. Odot hashela shenitororu b'Shabbat Kodesh Parshat Naso Isru Chag HaShavuot, on exactly like our year, Isru Chag Shavuos Parshas Naso, Shelakama b'nei Chutzlaretz hu Yom Tov Sheni Shel Goliot. So for people who are Chutzlaretz people, so they're keeping a second day of Yom Tov. Again, once again, that's not the universal practice. There are many people who only keep one day of Yom Tov as b'nei Chutzlaretz in Eretz Yisrael. V'lahem kriyat Torah nifredet liyom tov. So kriyat Torah, they read the Yom Tov kriya. What should they do about making up Parshas Naso? They're going to listen to Baloscha. So his assumption is that this is something to do against and not following the approach that I presented before from the Sefer Davar B'Ito, that it's not so simple to do this. Because of who says there's an obligation. Maybe it's a problem of too many divergent practices coexisting, and number three, maybe it's tirchad et Chabura, so causing unnecessary bother to the tzibur having to wait. So there's three strategies he speaks about. Strategy number one: Ofen echad lishma kriyat Parshat Naso biyom Shabbat Kodesh shu Yom Tov Sheni b'minyan mukdam u'meuchar shel b'nei Eretz Yisrael u'v'minyan ha'miyuchad shel b'nei Chutz La'aretz yikru kriyas Yom Tov Sheni v'Shavuos. In other words, dance at all the chasanas. Go to another minyan where they're reading Parshas Naso and listen to Parshas Naso in an Eretz Yisrael minyan. And then have your Yom Tov Sheni minyan and listen to the Kriya of Yom Tov in Yom Tov Sheni. So let's say that morning, Shabbos morning, so now Nate's is about 5:40 here in Israel. So you go to a Nate's minyan and you hear Kriyas HaTorah, and then you go to an 8 o'clock minyan or whatever, your Yom Tov Sheni minyan, and you hear the Kriya of Yom Tov. That's strategy number one. Now, what are the pluses and minuses of this? So, first of all, it is easy to do because it doesn't demand getting everybody together to do a Kriyas HaTorah. Everybody just does their normal Kriya. You don't have to have two gatherings, but he says this is not lechatchila. Why? This is not ideal. Why? They're not obligated in their kriya, so they don't want to just make up a parsha. They want to fulfill their obligation of the parsha. So that's assuming, once again, this whole thing is assuming that there is also a personal obligation to hear Parshat Shavuot, besides the communal obligation. It's not that I don't have to go to Kriyas HaTorah, but rather, when I go to Kriyas HaTorah on a normal Shabbos morning, I'm there as part of the tzibur. I'm there as part of the community, and this is how we have a communal obligation, which involves everybody coming. So we're all coming as part of the communal obligation. But let's say a guy was sick that Shabbos, and he didn't make it to shul, so he would have to make up the Kriyas HaTorah. So we have Shnayim Mikra V'Chotargum, but that's besides Le'olam Yashlim Adam Parshiotav Ima Tzibur. Everybody should individually read the Parsha twice, and the explanation, the Targum, and besides Kriyas HaTorah. So this is the reason probably why people won't ask this shaila if they were just not feeling well that Shabbos, is because here you have a whole tzibur that didn't read their Parshas Naso. So so it's very comfortable because you get it done without gathering everybody together. However, he says that's not ideal either. Why not? Because they're not chayev on Yom Tov Sheni to read Parshas Naso, meaning it's an obligation they don't have. Their obligation is going to be next Shabbos, just like the Bnei Chutzlaritz. The Bnei Chutzlaritz are going to be reading Naso the following Shabbos, and it'll take a while for them to catch up. So for them to read, to gather together, for them to go to a minyan where people are going to be reading Bnei Eretz Yisrael are reading the Parsha, so they're doing something that's not their obligation. So they're not going to be fulfilling their obligation because they don't have that obligation. Now, option number 2 is that the Bnei Chutzlaritz should gather together at Mincha, and the Kohen should read Parshas Naso up until Levi of Parshas Baloscha. In other words, the Kohen is going to get a half an hour plus a minute or two aliyah. He's going to read the Kohen is going to be 3 aliyahs. The Kohen aliyah is going to be massive, and then Levi and Yisrael are going to be from Parshas Baloscha and the regular Kriya for Mincha. So now that they're going to get in the Parsha, and they're going to do it already when Baloscha time is beginning at Mincha. Now, they're reading it in order, Naso, then Baloscha, but he says that's also not great. Because, and he says as follows, Ki akriya de Shabbat Mincha, the reading of Shabbos at Mincha, nitakna yedei Ezra Sofer, mishum yoshvei kranot. Now there are 2 layers of Kriyas HaTorah. One layer of Kriyas HaTorah is what Moshe Rabbeinu was metakin, that Moshe Rabbeinu, not Moshe Rabbeinu as bringing down the mitzvahs d'oraisa, but Moshe Rabbeinu as a beis din, and making takanot, making religious enactments. So Moshe Rabbeinu made a takana that Am Yisrael shouldn't go 3 days without Torah. So we read on Shabbos, we read Monday, and we read Thursday, and then the following Shabbos. So there's never 3 days. The longest you get is 2 days between Monday and Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday we don't have a Kriya. Shabbos at Mincha was an extra takana that Ezra Sofer made for the Oshrei Kranos, for those people that are involved in their stores during the week the whole time, and so they don't do that Kriyas HaTorah. So there's a Kriyas HaTorah for them, so they should have that kind of a Kriyas. So that on the day that they're not working, so they have an extra Kriyas HaTorah. That's for the Oshrei Kranos. So, but reading the Parsha on Shabbos in the morning, well, that's the original takana of Moshe Rabbeinu. So you can't fulfill the takana, the real takana, the original takana of Moshe Rabbeinu at the Ezra Yoshvei Kronos time. That's what he's saying. In other words, that time slot, that mishpetzet, that place in the weekly calendar is not the time for fulfilling the Kriyas HaTorah of reading Parshat Shavuot. It's a time for having a Kriya for the Yoshvei Kronos. So that also is not a good strategy. Now, that is though a strategy that that others do suggest. He quotes the Mishnah Halachos, Rabbi Menashe Klein, as making the suggestion that they should read the Parsha before Mincha. And it says here that Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, at that time it was Shlita, suggests doing that. So that that is a common minhag, and he writes here also that Rav Shach in the Panovich Yeshiva and Rav Baruch Shimon Schneerson in the I forgot. It might be the yeshiva in Ezra's Torah. What's it called? The yeshiva of Nunu. Okay, I'm blanking out. Along with Rav Vazner of the Shevet Alevi of the Chachmei Lublin Yeshiva. Oh, Kochav Miyakov, which is the Chabin. So Chabin, Panovich, and Chachmei Lublin. Those three yeshivas, their way of their strategy was to read Parshas Naso along with the first aliyah of Baaloscha for the Kohen, and then the other two are afterwards. So that is a common minhag. And despite Rav Yosef Lieberman's objections, so that was what they did. Now, the third suggestion is that on the next Shabbos, B'nei Chutzlar Tistasfu b'Shabbos Parshas Baaloscha, the following Shabbos, they should get together. V'ikru l'kohen kol Parshas Naso, and the kohen should read all of Naso until Levi Parshas Baaloscha, and then they should finish the rest of the aliyahs from Baaloscha. And that works according to everything. Why? Because it's fulfilling the takana of Moshe Rabbeinu of reading the Torah on Shabbos morning, and it is, and they'll be fine, and then they'll be able to just continue with the Bnei Eretz Yisrael where they are, and that's the best solution according to him. Again, there are objections to that. Again, it could be that the Bnei Chutzlarts would make a special minyan the next Shabbos also. The same way they made a special minyan on Yom Tov, they would make a special minyan the next week. You'd have to make sure that your yeshiva's on board for that. Now, I want to end with again, but just once again, Tirchot Tzibura, Lotzis Godadu, maybe there's no chiyuv at all. Keep those things in mind. But this whole tshuva was assuming that there is. I just want to bring one sort of interesting kind of offbeat thing that I saw, and it was I guess a machloket that between Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Reb Moshe Halberstam, both Zatzal. Reb Moshe Halberstam said he told the author of Rav Ganat that the in the times of Chazal, so there wasn't so much traveling between Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. You do see that there were people that traveled, but it wasn't like there's people going there's planes flying all the time between Chutz La'aretz and Eretz Yisrael. And the fact that in Eretz Yisrael they were reading one way of Kriyas HaTorah, and in Chutz La'aretz they were reading another. So it wouldn't, and in many generations, this issue just didn't come up. It was a rare kind of an issue. But today, so there's so many people who are traveling, and there's so much potential for Tircha de Tzibura here. And when he says, particularly in a Shana Mu'beres, when Pesach falls out on a Shabbos, and then Shvi Shel Pesach is on a Friday, and Bnei Chutz La'aretz have the last day. Again, we have it here with Shavuos and Naso, and it takes a long. But after Pesach, then it takes a long time until they catch up in Chutz La'aretz. So he says, again, it sounds a little bit. You can see why Reb Chaim Kanievsky is reacting. He says, it would have been. There would have been a place, again, it's theoretical, it's not actual. There would have been a place for the poskim of our generation to, it says, to alter the minhag and institute that the Bnei Chutz La'aretz should, on that first Shabbos, join up with the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. And he says the Rav Moshe Feinstein in Chutz La'aretz and and the Minchas Yitzchak or Rav Yitzchak Yaakov Weiss in Eretz Yisrael together would have made that decision. Rav Chaim Kanievsky, he has a strong reaction to that. Chalila l'shanos mitakonas Chazal ve'akadmonim. God forbid to change the way that Chazal and the earlier generations instituted the breakup of Kriyas HaTorah. Now, he says, L'mana diuk, in order to be particular, to be precise, it's not really a takonas Chazal. There were different practices going on in the times of Chazal. The people in Eretz Yisrael would finish the Torah in 3 years. But it was definitely a very early minhag, like the Rambam says, minhag shenispashet b'chol Yisrael, the minhag that became widespread throughout all of Israel. So that's not something that we're willing to change, and so even though that was like it was more like a theoretical comment that Ramosha Alberstein made. Okay. Anyways, in short. What are the people who were in Eretz Yisrael for Yom Tov Sheni of Shavuos? What do they do about Parshas Naso? One approach is nothing at all. They miss Parshas Naso, but that's a chiyuv tzibur. And to make it up, it might cause problems of lotis godedu. It might cause problems of tircha tzibura. However, if they are going to make it up, we saw two different strategies. One strategy that these different yeshivas did, Rav Shach for the Bnei Chutz La'aretz in his yeshiva, and Rav Baruch Shimon Schneerson for in his yeshiva in Chabin, and Rav Vazner in the Shevet Alev in Chachmin Lublin yeshiva. So their strategy was to read the Kriyas HaTorah of Parshas Naso. The Bnei Chutz La'aretz should do it on the afternoon of Yom Tov Shechol Yos B'Shabbos, which is that second day for the Bnei Chutz La'aretz, their minyan, which they're making anyways, because they're going to be davening Yom Tov davening. So their minyan that they're making anyways, they should read Parshas Naso at the beginning. The Rav Yosef Lieberman claims that would be reading the Torah, which is really from the Takana of Moshe at the time of the later Takana of Ezra, and you wouldn't be fulfilling the original Takana of Kriyas HaTorah. And finally, the Rav Yosef Lieberman himself suggests that next Parsha, next week at Baloscha, so the Bnei Chutzlar should get together and they should read Parsha Stosa for the Aliyah of Rishon. Anyways, that's a topic that is not necessarily a moot point. According to Rav Yosef Lieberman, it's still something that Bnei Chutzlar in Eretz Yisrael might do in next Shabbos, but it's very likely that many people already did the strategy of reading it on Shabbos afternoon. That's what I wanted to share with you today.